All right, welcome everybody to another Monday expert interview. Today on Dave Cooper Live, we welcome Martin Fenn. Martin Fenn is the Chartered Institute of Building, CIOB, Modern Methods of Construction lead for Oceania, Australia, and New Zealand. Over the past 18 months, he has been running an MMC webinar series interviewing those that are helping to transform our industry in order to share knowledge across the globe. In his day job, though, he is a gun for hire as a project director delivering MMC specific project management services covering offsite and supply strategies, smart procurement, DfMA management, on and offsite construction management, and MMC integration. His offsite experience extends across mass timber, panelized, volumetric construction types, as well as joinery, manufacture, and assembly. Currently, he is working on the rebuild of a remote township destroyed by the 2020 bushfires in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. He's going to correct me on that. National Park, north-southwest Australia. The project lends itself well to off-site construction due to the aggressive program, mountainous locations, and harsh weather. Yes, it does snow in Australia. All right, everybody, at Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests and our topics include experts in building systems to building science, building codes, and the tech used to build it better. And just like today's show, we are always seeking out the best and the brightest in construction and discovering all of the ways that innovative buildings come to life. So with that said, without further ado, let me bring Martin into the show. Martin, what's happening, mate?
Good afternoon, Dave, and good morning. Well, good afternoon, good morning. It's morning over here. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. It's great to finally have you on the show. You are doing amazing things with your education and programming that's going on in Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of Europe. And it is so pertinent and so vibrant to have you on this show to share what you're doing with our audience. Maybe we can learn something today. But before we hop into it, Martin, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, where Jennifer is going to call your mother, and we'll have her on the show to tell us all about it. But you only have 2 minutes to do it, so go for it, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be on your show. Thank you. Yeah, so look, I suppose construction's in my blood, really. My father had a construction company. I used to always work on construction sites during my school holidays. And I suppose the takeaway I learned from my dad was that, it's always simpler to do things in a workshop on scale rather than making something on site. Look at timber framing. If you're knocking up a frame on site, it's a lot more difficult than if it's, knocking it up in a factory. I went to university to study construction management, engineering, and surveying. It wasn't for me. So I went back on the tools, trained as a carpenter, traveled to lots of various countries around the world. I actually traveled to the States, worked in Southern California, slope stabilization. That was pretty fun. So when I trained as a carpenter, I typically worked on high-end refurbishments, as well as doing joinery installations, shop fitting. I learned about quality management being on the tools. Typically, as a carpenter, you learn to do things correctly, do things well, and only do things once. You soon learn that if you have to do something again, it erodes your profit. I learned about innovation really speeds things up. When I started out on the tools, you were hammering in 4-inch nails by hand with a hammer. Soon, when things like gas-powered guns came on board, you realized how much quicker things were. I came off the tools in about 2007 and worked on my first Modern Methods Construction MMC project, which is essentially like Meccano, bolting together mass timber structural sections with drop-in cassettes. That was a great experience, and that sort of gave me the taste for why modern methods of construction are the way forward. I ran a construction company for about 3 years and a joinery shop, and I learned about what you can physically run through the machines, what you can fit in the truck, what you can fit on site, what you can carry up the stairs are important design elements when you're looking at installations. I also learned that you need to invest more money in advanced machinery, but in order to do that, you need a steady pipeline of work to pay for it. Inefficiency means you're expensive. If you're expensive, you're not competitive. I then had cancer, a form of leukemia, closed the company, moved to New Zealand after the 2011 earthquakes. I basically had a lot of people helping me and I wanted to help back. I moved into client-side project management, did a lot of structural strengthening and repairs, learned about efficient processes. And with efficient processes, you can run more projects effectively with less people in less time with fewer mistakes. When I was in New Zealand, I met my wife, my beautiful wife, Julie. She's an Aussie, and I eventually moved to Sydney. I started just working on the construction sites over here and then moved back into client-side project management. And then I was very lucky to actually get on one of the large-scale government projects where MMC, Offsite Construction, was being rolled out on a pilot scheme across 5 multiple schools. So that was great. Yeah. And now, I'm the Modern Methods construction lead for Oceania, CIOB. And I think we're actually over the 2 minutes, so apologies for that.
Hey, you wouldn't be the first one nor the last. That's all right. Listen, I mean, what a storied past. And this is what I love so much about our industry. A lot of people that are in the forefront, pushing change, pushing education. It's not just from the books they studied. It's from taking the hard knocks in the field, right? It's from swinging hammers, driving nails, and always trying to come up with better ways and more efficient ways to work and move things forward. And this is what's great about you. So it's you have the practical side as well as the knowledge behind it to implement some of the things we're going to talk about today and some of the great things that you're doing with CIOB. And for everybody out there, the Chartered Institute of Building has a webinar series, and we're going to get into that. And I think it's something that we really need to look at in our country. And I know we have people from around the world joining us. You want to stay tuned so you can join some of these webinars and really learn how to do it better. Martin, the fact that, one, we have the same haircut almost, yours is a lot cleaner and neater than mine, is great. But on the other side of it, too, is, you know, you had a battle with cancer and you won, man. I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. All right, so let's hop into it. So we got about 45 minutes, Martin. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Why are we live on Twitch, Martin? Do you have any idea?
No idea.
No idea, because that's where all the young people are. All the young people are on Twitch. They're playing their video games, right? Fortnite and all of those things. So they're not coming to us in our industry. So we decided to live stream our show where they are. And believe it or not, we're getting quite a few people joining us. Heck, even the head immediate past chair of the National Association of Home Builders is now using Twitch to join our show on a regular basis. So outstanding. Martin, let's get into it, man. Number one, tell me about what CIOB MMC webinar series is all about.
Yeah, look, so the CIOB, we're the world's largest professional body for construction management and leadership. It's a global community. We've got about 50,000 members across the globe.
Wow.
We stand for the science, ethics, and practice of built environments across the world. And look, we decided during COVID last year that we needed to engage a lot more with not only our members, but non-members. So we started this webinar series specific on modern methods construction, because that's the area I work in.
Yeah.
And it's just gone gangbusters, Dave. Like, you know, we one of our first webinars, we had 300 odd people turn up. And off that, we've so I suppose the main driver for this is to share knowledge across the world. We might interview someone from the UK, we might interview someone from your neck of the woods, and share that knowledge across the world. It's also to share the great work that some of the guys are doing over here with the rest of the world. And it's fundamentally to motivate collaboration within our industry, which unfortunately our industry can be quite insular. You know, if someone has a great idea, they want to hold on to it and not necessarily share it. However, you know, it's modern times. It's about sharing that knowledge, that experience, and enhancing it.
So can I got to add to this, right? And I don't even know if I have my my soapbox ready. Oh, I do. I have my soapbox ready. There it is across the ticker below. The bottom line is this, and I say it on the show, and everybody's listening, forgive me for getting on my soapbox, but when you're only 4 or 5% of an entire industry and you think you have the secret sauce, and we stay 4 to 5% of the entire industry forever and ever and ever, well, you're wrong. You got to share that knowledge. There's only one way to go, and that's up, because if you had the secret sauce, we wouldn't have a labor shortage, we wouldn't have a housing crisis, and we'd be building better and healthier homes. So that's my soapbox. I'll leave it back to you. What's your thoughts on that, Martin?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, look, what we try and say is with modern methods of construction, we are not sort of promoting an insular group. We are looking at modern methods of construction being mainstream, right? Rolling this out across, you know, the construction world, rather than just saying we're just focused within, you know, a small sector. We want this, as I said, to become mainstream. This is how you build. And we want to promote that to the, you know, the guys and girls who are entering our industry or thinking about entering our industry as well. Because also, let's face it, people don't want to be on building sites. People don't want to go on the work in the trades. It's hot, it's cold, it's wet, it's dirty, it's hard work. But through modern methods of construction, as we know, we're addressing the labor shortage. And, you know, it's also promoting that you won't necessarily be on a building site moving bricks. There's a whole digital side to construction nowadays. And we like to sort of promote that to those girls and guys who are wanting to enter the industry, that, you know, there's actually some attractive professions within the industry.
There really is. It's always sunny and 70 inside a manufacturing facility is what we like to say over here. Always sunny and 70. It's not freezing, and you're not in the snow in Australia. But you're right, with the technology that's coming out, digital twins, generative designs, right, parametric design, all of these different things coming together in our industry. Not only is it attractive for young people, they already know how to do a lot of this stuff. I mean, they've been doing this stuff in the gaming world forever and a day, and this is why I always go to Twitch when we're streaming. You know, and to bring those minds in to help us do it better, to help us build things without change orders, because it is possible today. That's really what we're looking to do. And when you're using offsite methods of construction, Martin, right? I mean, you don't have to lift heavy stuff anymore. We have machines that can do that. We have robots that can do that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, look, my last webinar last week, that we focused on robotics within the industry. And I think that's where you connected with me. You know, nowadays we're seeing these medical grade or military grade exosuits start to enter the industry, which, you know, they don't just help fit people to be able to lift things repetitively without injury, but also people who may be coming to a certain age where it's difficult to lift things, or they may have been injured, they may be on a rehabilitation program, where these sort of things like exosuits actually enable them to work or continue to work, which is great. Whereas, you know, 20 years ago, those sort of things only existed on sci-fi films, you know?
Well, and that's it. It extends the longevity of people working towards their retirement. And if they do get hurt, there's now options out there to help them continue doing what they love doing. So let's talk about this webinar series. Well, can we tell me a little bit about what is the CIOB MMC webinar series? How do you get involved? What all are you talking about? Robots, for instance?
We've had some great things. Like we've had, you know, if we're advertising Australia, we had Tim Strong from Veridi on last year. He was talking about his Australian kit of parts they've developed. And they've also using, I mean, it was a great story. They're using timber from the bushfires within some of their CLT, and which is fantastic, because during the bushfires, as people saw on the news, Australia lost thousands and thousands of hectares of forest, and the forest timber that has been affected by the bushfires, it can't. It just often it can't be used for anything else. And Veridi are working with several forestry companies to be able to take that bushfire damaged trees and use that within CLT. So not only do they get income, the timber doesn't end up in landfill or just waste. So great story for, on that. We've had robotics. Next month, September, we've got a great company, an Australian company. They're going to be talking about drones in construction, but not just flying drones around construction sites. This is the sort of back of house element, governance, compliance, asset surveillance, asset counter surveillance, all those sort of things that you don't really think about. And the use of drones, and drones not just being like a flying machine, drones also, having wheels on them and the like. So that's going to be interesting. And
so I just want to drive this home because I had some conversation on it. In the compliance side, government officials, government departments, construction, zoning, they can literally send a drone out. The drone can run the survey, make sure your footprint's what it needs to be, your dimensions of your house, right? It can collect the data. And that's what you guys are going to be talking about is how far can this technology go and how can it simplify and speed up? Because that's what's going to happen. It should help speed up building departments and permits approvals and, housing approval, all that stuff. Yes.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like also, we talk about labor shortages. It can also, let's say me, Mr. Project Manager, it could help me run more projects for the same fee in the same time. Because rather than, let's say, driving out 2 hours to site to go and look at a stockpile and go, is that 1,500 cubes or is it 2,000 cubes? A drone just goes up. A drone can accurately scan that stockpile, send the images back, and you go, and the contractor makes a claim for, I don't know, 1,500 cubes, and the drone verifies that there's 1,500 cubes within that stockpile. And I've saved 4 hours of driving. Yeah.
Which is time, which is money and fuel and everything else. For sure. All right. So we're sharing the knowledge. And it's also a global learning opportunity, these webinars. So when you're doing these webinars, is it a global opportunity? Can anybody from anywhere join these webinars? And can they take things away from these webinars that would be pertinent to them in their neck of the woods, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, we advertise it on LinkedIn and we get we get people from all over the world: South Africa, Montenegro, China, Brazil, USA, Canada. Look, there's a lot of people from the UK jumping in. There's a lot of expats from the Middle East jumping in. And when they join the webinar, watch the webinar, they get CPD points. So continued professional development points for actually attending. These webinars then go on to the CIOB website. We've got Academy part of the website. And with that, members can watch it for free, or non-members can watch the webinars for £10. And but in saying that, if you register for the event, you get sent the webinar for free in any case. But you get CPD points for this. And I often get universities contact me, students, they might be writing a thesis or need some advice on a thesis on, it might be DfMA, Design for Manufacturing and Assembly. It might be on Offsite Construction. It might be specifically focused on volumetric construction. So it's definitely a huge learning opportunity. And not just for students. Sometimes you've got other consultants who might not have much experience with DfMA. So it's people are loving it.
Yeah, I mean, they should love it. There's not enough education out there. There's really not a whole lot of formal training anywhere on modern methods of construction. and people are kind of learning it as it goes. And this is where motivate collaboration within our industry really comes from, because the people that are in our industry, we really need them to also be the educators for the industry. We need them to help the next generation, help our industry continue the conversation, and help with your programming and what have you. So, all right, listen, everybody, if you're just joining us, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. If you are not following Martin Fenn, you're wrong. Go there and follow him after the show. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, which is getting over 100,000 minutes every 28 days being watched right now, you need to go there and subscribe so you do not miss any of this great content, because who wouldn't want to listen to that awesome Martin Fenn accent over and over again? I don't know. I think it's cool. I like the Australian or the New Zealand accent that you have. All right, Martin. So we're going to get into educating our industry, and then we're going to get into large-scale government projects. So we have a lot to cover here today. We're going to talk about the Australian MMC market. Does it relate to the USA market, or does it not? And then we're going to talk about the circular economy and sustainability. So don't go anywhere. We're going to get in depth here. We've been kind of just chatting at a high level, but we're going to start digging in now. All right, so motivate collaboration within our industry. Martin, for you guys in Australia, I have a feeling it's the same for us here. What's going on there when you say we have to motivate collaboration within our industry?
Yeah, look, it's about sharing the good ideas, sharing what works, and that might be what we're using currently in Australia. It might be what's being used abroad, and yeah, definitely getting together, putting like minds together to share that experience and that knowledge. Because as we all know, the construction industry has got its problems. It's got its productivity issues, particularly compared to other industries like manufacturing. And I think within construction, it is definitely something that's probably just, construction is quite old-fashioned, I find, and the mindset is quite old-fashioned. So if someone's got this great idea, they don't want to share it because they think it's got their personal IP or their company's IP all over it. But look, essentially, if we shared that knowledge and that experience on an industry level, I think the industry would flourish. And we've all seen those graphs, the McKinsey report, where manufacturing productivity is up there and construction's down there. And I think that just that sharing the knowledge and experience would help close that productivity gap. Because other industries are very good at sharing their knowledge.
All right, I have to do it, Martin. You got my soapbox again. It's funny. You and I are on the same page with this, because quite honestly, we are in last place. We are behind agriculture when it comes to innovation. This is the one thing that we spend most of our time in that protects our families, right? And it's the least innovative industry out there, at least for the United States. And that has to change. I say it all the time. And if you're listening, Mr. Elon Musk, your cars should be charging our house, not our houses charging your cars. You got 4 little turbines going there. Let's find a way to make that happen. All right. So Martin, let's move into our separate, our second topic, and we've already kind of delved into it a little bit, but it's educating our industry, but not educating it in the sense of, well, this is the type of nail and this is the type of joinery we're doing. It's educating in how do we integrate MMC, modern methods of construction. How are you guys going about doing this?
Yeah, look, yeah. So really, it starts with design. You've got to get the design right. And, a real buzzword in Australia at the moment is DfMA, Design for Manufacturing Assembly. Now, DfMA, Design for Manufacturing Assembly, I think the industry needs to learn a lot more about that. It doesn't just stop there. There's things like design for transport. It's got to be certain sizes to get it on certain size trucks. Certain size trucks have certain permits, or may have to have police escorts, may have to travel at certain times of the day, or in the early hours of the night. Design for assembly. Cranes. Learning. There may be road restrictions or weight restrictions, so only certain size cranes can be used. They need to learn it also with the design for manufacturing assembly. There's labor. You may have to stick with a certain number of on-site labor. Otherwise, you've got to increase your accommodation. This project that I'm working on at the moment, you can only, there's only on-site accommodation for 42 workers. So you can't, you have to really have that front and center. Design for weather. Certain products are difficult to transport in bad weather. Design for storage. What if there's a bit of a log jam in the factory? Can you stick it outside, or will it get, black mold growing through it in 3 months' time? So there's a big thing with the design. Front end loading of the design. A lot of companies miss that beat, and it's about their resources, really loading up those resources to get to that point in time where you can press the button for early manufacture. Installation of a design freeze is paramount. Change management. Really teaching the teams, the design teams, the contractor teams, to install the early design freeze so that when these products go into manufacture, there's little to no change. But you can't just one day turn up at a meeting and say, guys, there's a design freeze. It's about that key communication throughout that design phase, managing your stakeholder expectations, saying, guys, in 4 weeks' time, we need to install a design freeze. That design freeze will lock in your layout, will lock in your structure, your envelope, your roof design. It may be, you might have to have several design freezes because, at that point in time, you may not be able to lock in your finishes, for example. And it's about using that to your advantage. So, when those modules, when those components are being manufactured, there won't be any change, because late changes cost a lot of money.
Well, that's it. So when you say design freeze, that means no more changes. We're hitting the production line.
Yeah.
Right?
No more change. Yeah.
That's correct. Yep. And so with that, let's talk about that. So you hit the design freeze, then you have the procurement part of this that has to happen to get all the supplies and everything you're going to need to actually put this on the manufacturing line. Is it different than traditional building? So we talk about procurement, in the field, you go to the lumber yard, you place your order, windows show up. Is it different where in your neck of the woods on how you do this for MMC, for manufacturing?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it definitely is, because when we're talking about design, you want to have your key people in the room at the same time. And you more than likely need to get the offsite manufacturer engaged much earlier. So whether that's engaged on some form of almost like a consultancy agreement, they call it early contractor involvement, where they're sat around the table with the design team making these key decisions. So they'd be engaged a lot sooner than necessarily your typical construct only contracts or even your design and construct contracts. Now, in terms of procurement, you're typically using the same traditional construction contracts. However, they need to be often amended to suit offsite construction. So that would be, for example, if you've got an offsite manufacturer manufacturing for 7 months before they can get on site, the contractual terms and conditions may only enable them to be paid once those products are not only on site but installed on site. So not many companies can cash flow 7 months or whatever it is without money. So there needs to be amendments within the clauses of the contract that enable the offsite manufacturer to get paid for those products whilst those products are off-site within their facility, but equally protects the client. So those products are being paid for by the client, but then vest in the interest of the client. So there's certain contractual mechanisms that need to be amended within traditional forms of contract to enable that.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So the banks, the banking system, the investors, the money behind a project, are you finding that you're getting buy-in from the investors, from the banks on using modern methods of construction? where they either have to put up money up front or they're not putting up a lot of money. To me, it's a win-win, I think, for any investor or bank when you're dealing with a reputable manufacturing facility.
Yeah, sure. So I haven't been dealing with banks or investors on this, but I've been dealing with large government clients. And yes, the appetite's there. Understandably, they want to know that they're not being exposed to any sort of additional risk as a result of this. So I'll try and keep it high level without diving into some of the details. But there's certain mechanisms in Australia that are unique to Australia that enable products to be labeled and stored, labeled with the client's details, stored in a particular area away from the rest of the business as usual products and materials. They're then cited and then they're registered on a particular register, whereby it's registered within the client's interest. There's also another mechanism that goes with that, called a deed of entry, where the client's representatives would then have the ability to legally, should the manufacturer go bust, or into liquidation, the client's representatives would then be able to enter that facility and take those products and finish them or install them on site, or get them finished and installed on site.
Right.
Yeah, and there's definitely appetite for that within government, because this certain register, this mechanism means that securities don't necessarily have to be paid, which assists with the contractor and the offsite manufacturer's cash flow. And but it's all got to be managed up front. It's all got to be agreed, acknowledged, and put into play up front. Typically, what you'll see is a progress claim comes in, and you'll see this offsite manufacturing elements being claimed in there, and the contractors sort of going, how do I claim for these? And you're scrabbling around, looking at certain documents they've got to provide and certain things they've got to upload online. Yeah, right. So that whole piece needs to be, people need to be educated on that, because it's complicated. If you've got certain clauses in contracts and conditions that you need to adhere to, you can't waiver those because of time. You've got to tick all the boxes.
So Martin, part of your webinar series, I mean, you cover all of this. You cover the how-tos, what to look for. You talk about the contracts. You talk about the specifics, right? So, I mean, this is all just kind of an overview of what has to happen, but you guys really dive deeper into it during your webinars. Is that an accurate comment?
Yeah. I was actually involved on this large-scale government project, and the lawyers that we worked with who amended the contract, I've had them on one of the webinars. And look, typically contracts, legals are quite dry. And I even explained that to the lawyer, Alex. I said, look, the feedback I'm getting is quite dry. And he actually, we had a lot of positive feedback. They did a great job of explaining it in a less dry fashion. Right. And we've got a Modern Methods Construction Coalition group, and Alex Whiteside from Norton Rose Fulbright, the lawyer, he's actually involved with our group, and we got him to talk to us, do a specific talk on procurement, because it's one of these hot topics on everyone's lips at the moment. Because we've heard, certain clients saying, "Oh, look, we're not necessarily sure we want to do offsite construction because there's low appetite with contractors because it affects their cash flow." We're saying, hey, look, there are ways and means to enable healthy cash flow, positive cash flow for the contractor, without exposing the client to the associated risks that people believe that exist.
Sure.
And
but that's it, right? It's knowing where you stand in these contracts and understanding the process, right? Because a lot of times the manufacturer is putting up a lot of the product in the process before they get paid, and a lot, 100%. At least here in the United States, right? And I think sometimes it's not just the developer or the owner of the project that's putting up the risk. A lot of times the manufacturer is sharing in a lot of that risk, hoping they get paid when the project's ready, hoping there isn't a COVID-19, hoping there isn't a natural disaster or bushfires or hurricanes that put a halt to everything they put into it.
100%. I mean, like, look, it also depends on the risk profile of the project as well.
Yep.
Like, as you know, you can actually manufacture your products offsite without your planning consent in place. So you run the risk of, if there's a little bit of a delay with your planning consent, you cause a bit of a logjam at the factory. You can't deliver those modules to site. So that compounds the issue. If these guys haven't been paid for 7 months, and then they've got to wait another couple of months for planning consent to come through, you compounded the issue. So you need to make sure that the contract, you're using a traditional contract, but an amended form. So you're not necessarily using any brand new contract that's just come out into the market. But and I suppose also as well, we've got this global steel crisis, Dave. Steel's becoming really difficult to get hold of. Steel is, the prices went up last quarter in Australia by 25%. So you can use these contract mechanisms to actually help your offsite manufacturers with the steel procurement without exposing your client to any additional risk, by actually being able to get the manufacturer can order the steel, get the steel to their factory, label it. It can then be verified that it's there, and then payment can be made. And it's a win-win. The manufacturer's got the steel at the price that they priced the job at, and the client doesn't see the delay or the increase in steel price.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, everybody, if you're joining us, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I have Martin Fenn on. Martin, why don't we go to a couple comments real quick, and then when we come back, we're going to hop back into some more of the details on this. We're going to talk about large-scale government, that are using MMC, time, quality, cost, labor. What are the schools doing? You're on a really big project with the schools. And then we'll get into the Australian MMC market, and then we'll talk about, does the contractor's mindset have to change for this to become the mainstream? So, but first, before we do all that, let's go say hello to a few people in the audience. We have Andrew Seeley, Central Texas, sends greetings all. Andrew Seeley is president of GPOD America. They're doing amazing things and working on a prototype for a new type of building in Texas. So good to see you, Andrew. Dan Esparza, what's happening, Dan? Seattle, Washington. Hello to all. Hey, listen, if you don't know Dan was on our show not too long ago. Top-down construction. We're talking about building high-rise buildings. You build it on the first floor, and then you lift the floors up from the bottom. Imagine that. If you haven't seen that before, you got to check it out, Martin.
Wow.
Damian Stapleton, greetings from Dublin, Ireland. What's happening, Damian? It's good to see you. I hope all is well. Thank you. And, of course, we have the one, the only, Mickelberg in the house. What's up, Henry Mickelberg? Good to see Martin on the show. I've been following his webinars, and they are superb. Not to be disparaging to the wider CIOB, Oceania is definitely the skunkworks of the institution.
Thanks, Henry.
Well, appreciate you, Henry. It's good to see you. I hope all is well. We have George Ryman. Good morning from Phoenix, Arizona. What is happening, George? Good to see you. Tom Reddy is joining us. Hello, all joining from Du Bois, PA. Great content today. Tom Reddy is with Synergy Steel. So we were just talking about steel a little bit, so I'm sure Tom's ears perked up on that one. Topanga Co. Hey, Topanga. Good morning. Trying to do this exact thing in Canada. Modular Constructors Unite. So tell us a little bit more about that, Topanga. Is that you're trying to educate, or you're trying to use modular construction? I'd love to learn more, because if you guys have a program, we should all talk and figure out how we collaborate. It'd be interesting to see. What's your thoughts on that, Martin?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. Yeah, this whole collaboration and, unite. It'd be great to sort of hear about what's happening over there, because we're trying to sort of create a united front over here. It'd be great to share some experience and knowledge on that. Yeah,
it's so much easier to collaborate instead of reinventing the wheel, because somebody may have already thought of it, for sure. Tom Reddy says, all about education. Love hearing about the multiple design for critical concepts. So Appreciate it, Tom. Tom, for joining in. Thank you so much. All right, let's hop back into this. We are at 45 minutes almost, so we got to get going, Martin. You don't talk enough.
Do
no, all right, so let's talk about this. Large-scale government projects using MMC. Now, Australia, England, and others have taken a different approach and have started using MMC or mandating some sort of MMC into their code, like England has done, right? How is this working for you and the projects you're currently working on that are large government projects, and how did you get the governments involved?
Yeah, look, over here in Australia, typically you've got prisons, you've got schools being built, police stations being built off-site for various reasons. Now, there's a government entity called Schools Infrastructure, New South Wales, who are part of the Department of Education. They actually, within themselves wanted to roll out a pilot program of a certain number of schools through offsite construction. The projects that were earmarked for that were ones that had real tight programs that had to be delivered no matter what within a certain time frame. It was also, these were in key areas where they're desperate for schools. Australia, New South Wales, the Sydney area is just expanding with population growth. So there's a lot of construction going on, and where they're building lots of houses, they obviously need to supplement that with schools. So we got involved. We didn't actually suggest offsite construction. It was already on the radar. But what we did, Schools Infrastructure, they wanted to deal with program certainty. Projects are often delayed, whereas through offsite construction, one of the key benefits is your program certainty. For example, inclement weather. In Australia, I know it's hot a lot of the time, but sometimes it can be too hot. Where one of my projects was, that was the hottest place in the world at one point in time, 48 odd degrees. Dealing with the skilled labor shortage, and then defects. Defects, kill projects. And one thing with schools is that the first few days of a student's life at school are paramount. They remember it for the rest of their life. So if there's builders running around fixing things and there's areas fenced off because it's unfinished, defects are no good for schools. So anyway, we rolled out, we engaged with the market to look at, what the capability of the market was. And the feedback that we received from this engagement was that, on that sort of size and scale, the volumetric method was what the market would be able to respond with. So I managed the first of the modular schools over here in New South Wales, which was about 600 students. It was a healthy sized project. I've got some photos and some slides that I can show you a bit later on. And look, Schools Infrastructure, there's a lot of critique within the market of what they're doing. But look, you've got to take your hat off to them. They're actually doing something about it. They've created their own DfMA guidelines. So they've got like a nearly 300-page document that they set certain grid sizes that would suit the layout of the school classroom, but also enable that building to be built with concrete, steel, or timber, whether it's volumetric or panelized. And, as you said, on numerous projects, they've actually mandated offsite construction. And what we did within some of the contracts, we mandated that there had to be at least a 60% PMV, so offsite percentage value. And look, they're going from strength to strength, and they're developing as well what they call the kit of parts, so a catalogue of components. So they're currently developing that at the moment. I don't know if you guys use the word kit of parts over in the States.
Well, we hear it a lot just from our friends across the pond say kit of parts quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right? What's part of the assembly process and what's going to be needed. So with the schools, like you said, schools are setting up their own standards or their own kit of parts for MMC construction. And we're seeing a lot of universities start using, offsite methods of construction, whether it's panelized or modular. And some are even using like CLT, glue lam, and mass timber, depending on what the university is doing. Wow. Is there a savings for them that has been proven for the universities or for the schools? Like, what's the biggest value to them? Because it does come down to numbers, yes?
It comes down to numbers, and this is the unfortunate thing at the moment, because we've got a relatively immature MMC market over here. Yeah. Typically there will be, the upfront cost is going to be more expensive. However, what you've got to look at is the cost of risk and the cost of delay. So, and also program, the cost of time. Now, we did these huge analyses of all the various programs that came through, and the summary of the program analysis was even what we'd class as lean construction, so a cross between well, it is MMC, but they were still using quite a lot of traditional methods. The programs could not, the projects could not be delivered on time. Whereas when we actually looked at the volumetric method, they were the only methods that could deliver the project on time. So, if you then factor time, time into the equation, you've then got to look at the cost of delay. Like you see these huge extension of time claims come through from contractors because of, they've had 3 weeks of heavy rain or something like that. So if you factor that in and you look at your end cost, sometimes it's not what it appears as the upfront cost, but you are paying a bit of a premium, unfortunately. For
it, right? But you kind of recoup that. You kind of recoup that on the back end by getting the schools moving, heads on beds, right? I guess it just depends on the market, right? I could see that for education universities, but when you get into commercial projects like hotels and business offices, you start generating that income sooner.
100%. Yeah. So if you factor that in, potentially it's not more expensive.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the Australian MMC market, in fact, do you want to get into this, or would you like to show some of the stuff you had first? Why don't we show some of your pictures?
Yeah, I'll show, let me show some, hang on. I'll share my slides in a sec.
You tell me when you're ready and I'll put it up there for you.
Right, I'm ready.
Right, okay. I love it. Right, it's up.
So, sorry, why is this not? Bear with me a sec, Dave.
That's okay. Go ahead. All right, everybody, listen. While he's getting that sorted, as they say overseas, they're sorting it out. Please hit that like and share button, and please follow MMC. What Martin Fenn is doing with Modern Methods of Construction at CIOB. And learn a little bit, and go and follow him, and be sure to sign up for some of his webinars if you're truly interested in this. We'll come back to some more comments here right after we wrap up near the end of the show. But go ahead, Martin, if you're ready.
Right, let's see if this video works. Here we go.
I can't hear anything on my end.
Right, I don't know why that's not working.
You got to pick the when you go in for your share. In the Chrome tab there's a little button that says share audio. Maybe you didn't grab that.
Yeah. Okay, that's not a problem. I was just talking. That was one of the webinars where it always ends up typically where we talk about procurement and issues with contracts. So that was PT Blink, who are a great Aussie company. They're actually looking at rolling out across the States. This is just an example of the type of projects that I started working on as a kid, as a carpenter, high-end refurbishment. That's a project in London. This was my first MMC gig. So this was, these were a glue lam structural frame that was like Meccano, bolted together on site, came on the back of a truck from Poland. Within these packs, we then took them out, bolted them together, lifted the frames into position, and then you dropped in some cassette systems for the floors and walls. And this was to Code for Sustainable Homes, code level 6. So pretty much net carbon zero. These are the flat pack forms, and I'll tell you, Dave, this was a tight site, real tight site. So we had one of these remote control mini crawler cranes that just saved the world.
Okay.
And then, you'll see here, these are these floor cassettes that dropped into place. And you then put in the insulation. Everything was like, you'll see on the, where the joists are, there's even an aperture for where the joist went. So you literally dropped it into position and then put a screw through it. So this gave me a good taste for modern methods of construction, being simple. A lot of the guys we used weren't just carpenters. We'd have one carpenter with a couple of laborers, just because it's basically installation rather than real skilled carpentry. And this was the finished product. So it had on the other side, it had a green roof. It had solar thermal for the hot water, photovoltaic. It had wind turbines, you name it, and was essentially to passive house standards, so airtight construction and the like. This is one of my projects. I haven't got permission from the government comms team, so I'm not going to drop any names, but this was volumetric. So we had, this one was 55 modules that came up from Melbourne. Big project. So we're delivering like 12 modules at a time. These are the modules being dropped into place. You'll see that they've got a pile footing, which is they were quick. The soil, it was clay, so it caused all sorts of issues, but they got those piles in really quickly and then dropped the modules on top of it. And it was this was what really gave me a flavor for volumetric. It is so quick. It arrives on site, craned into position, bang, it's up. So that's
sure. And that's all steel construction?
Yeah, light gauge steel. Yeah, heavyweight black steel frame with a light gauge steel infill.
Yeah, are you doing concrete floors or no?
No, these were actually lightweight floors, so no concrete floors.
Sure. You're absolutely right. We did a project during COVID for a hospital. It was a 7,000 square feet of a new pediatric emergency room addition right at the height of COVID. And we had all the units put in with all the MEPs. Think of a hospital and all the parts and kits and parts that are in it. Up and running in less than 12 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
That's incredible. How fast it was. And I kind of knew it was steel because you're doing a top pick there on these versus a bottom pick with the crane. So love it.
And this is what I mean about educating industry. Like, learning all about the different cranes, lifting plans and the like, because here we were using, the contractor was using 330 ton cranes. And you see here, all this hard fill compacted around the site. That hadn't been thought of. And that was actually put in late. And what you've got to think of, if you've got a clay site, you've had 3 to 5 days of heavy rain. You haven't got much chance of tracking a 330 ton crane across that. So, when you're looking at your upfront costs, your upfront planning of doing a project volumetrically, you've got to think about all of that. Have those costs within your cost plan,
Well, that's it. Yep, that tracking pads. I mean, there's a whole lot of variables to it. How close is the crane going to be to the foundation? How far is the pick? Yeah, been there. Did that for 20 years, Martin. I know it well.
Yeah, wow.
Modular is something that, like I said, I was a modular builder for 20 years, everything from residential to commercial. So I know the ins and outs and all the people involved and the headaches that come with it as well. All right, so Martin, let's take a look. Topanga said, she got back to us, we are uniting the modular and prefabricated industry, bringing creators of innovation together to build better, innovating products, processes, and networks to build modern modular. No company is an island. I guess the MIT.ca. Well, that's cool. Good job, Topanga. Oh, wow. I've not heard of you guys before. So please send me a LinkedIn message. I'd like to connect and learn a little bit more and see if there's a fit for some collaboration, since that is the theme of our conversation today. It's a good theme. I like the theme. All right. So one of the things with the Australian MMC market, and I put it up there, is the mindset of contractors has to change. What part of the mindset has to change? I mean, to me, we've been in it for so long, it just makes sense. But the problem, at least in this country, is there was an old stigma between modular and mobile homes, and, you know, the quality wasn't there. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's that as well. I think it's definitely mindset related. But look, things have to change. You know, we're living in this ever changing world. We've got this crisis at the moment, environmental crisis. We've got a crisis where we can't build enough buildings quickly enough to house people and the like. But I suppose it's the mindset is with you know, this low appetite for new methods. Now, you know, it's probably the same across the world, but what we're seeing here is although there's big money in construction, there's low margins. Therefore, contractors do not want to necessarily take a risk and do something different. They want to do what they do day in, day out, because they know how much money they're going to make. They know how much margin there is there. Look, Australia is tucked away from the rest of the world, so we've got our own sort of micro climate going on here. Look, there's another issue as well with regional areas. So if you're building, for example, a hospital in a regional area, that, you know, it may be, you know, several million, it might be $1 billion hospital.
Right.
Now, that's a once in a lifetime injection of capital into that local economy. Now, you've got to sort of really work hard with offsite construction where you can use the local trades. You know, for example, if there's this injection to the local economy, they've all been waiting for years, and then everything's built in Sydney, all that money's just injected into Sydney, all the trades come and stay in some local accommodation. Yeah, the hotels and bars may get a bit of the slice of the pie, but the hospital, for example, is finished, everyone goes, and that local economy has seen very little of that stimulus injection. So things like that need to be addressed. But look, going back onto the contractors, I know when we're engaging with the market,
right,
if you look at a volumetric method, you might be looking at 50% of the construction contract sitting with one subcontractor. That is a huge risk. You know, we even had one contractor saying that, you know, we've taken it to our board. Our board have decided, you know, that does not meet our risk profile. You know, it's very difficult for a contractor to manage a subby of that size and scale. Even with panelized, you might be looking at 25% of the construction contract. And potentially the contractor's set to make less money because the offsite manufacturer has got all of their trades tied up with them. So when you're looking at, you know, this margin here tucked away there, it's more difficult for them. But, you know, look, things have to change. We're seeing over here, it's a lot more volumetric focused. There's some big volumetric companies. However, we are seeing the increase of panelized systems. They're typically over here made out of light gauge steel coil. There are timber solutions, but over here, timber, there's less of a domestic supply here than, let's say, the States or Canada or Austria. Okay. Timber is expensive at the moment. We talked about this, but there's certain codes in Australia that are very onerous, typically around fire, but also termite protection as well. Timber can be addressed, but it's obviously more difficult than light gauge steel.
Sure it is. And I think with you know, with wood, like you were saying, and something you learned when you got there, is termites become an issue in certain parts of Australia. So, you know, listen, it's not a one size fits all. Modular is not a one size fit all. It's not. It doesn't work everywhere. You know, it's a mix of mass timber, modular, panelization, with some traditional on-site construction that has to happen for certain things. I mean, that's just the way it goes. We need all the different areas to come together and collaborate. All right, we're just about out of time here. Let's talk about real quick, speed round, sustainability in the circular economy. This was our 5th topic of the day. What's your thoughts on this? And we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, look, previously sustainability has been sort of associated with people wearing sandals, long hair and beards. Now it's becoming a prerequisite. It's not just a nice to have. We're seeing, the sustainability and go through leaps and bounds at the moment. Still manufacture using green hydrogen instead of coke from coal. I think it's a game changer. Low carbon concrete, with graphene polymers and etc. That's another game changer. So using the products, the materials that we already use, but those products and materials are made in a more sustainable way, using less fossil fuels, less emissions. Over here, we're seeing some, great startups over here. Unfortunately, as a result of the Grenfell Tower incident in London, where 72 people perished, there's a global crisis with the use of aluminium composite panel cladding, sandwich panels, and those need to be replaced on a lot of the high-rise buildings. The reason for that is they've got a polymer core, which is flammable, and hence why these buildings are burnt down. So instead of these panels ending up in landfill, we're seeing a couple of companies who are able to separate the aluminium from the polymer, recycle the aluminium, which is, less problematic, but the polymer core, so it's polyurethane, it's being shredded down and repurposed and made into pipework, wheel stops for car parks. And then also another company's actually been able to use the mixed residuals, so like the paints and laminates that come off these panel materials, rather than send those to landfill, they're actually able to use those in waste to energy plants. So to create what's called processed engineered fuel to offset fossil fuels and make cement, and the cement absorbs the emissions. So yeah, there's some great stuff going on at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome. And I think when we talk about the circular economy, how do you use those recycled content, right? Companies are coming out of the woodworks to take these contents, to keep them out of the landfill and reuse them. We talked a little bit about this as well with all the houses they're ripping down here in this country. Imagine if somebody, and even in just one town, 50,000 homes, I think it was in Michigan, they're ripping down, condemned. If somebody could come in and take all that old lumber, all those old 2x4s, all that asphalt shingles, all that old insulation, and do something with it, because it's a huge opportunity, because Michigan's only one state, right? Think about how many states have the same issue with old houses, condemned houses, things of that nature. So the circular economy is coming up, and it's going to be fun to watch these companies do different things.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is this whole DfMA element. So one of the Ds is, let's say, design for disassemble, design for deconstruction, design for, design for recycling. And so that, when the building reaches its end of life, it's easy to disassemble and either re-erect elsewhere, or it's easy to disassemble and use those products for something else, not necessarily recycle them, because that's, using energy. And I think now that, there's that focus on sustainability, it will potentially change the design of a lot of these buildings.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well, MMC is the future. There's no two ways around it. It's starting to really take shape, not only here in this country, but it sounds like in Australia and New Zealand and others too. All right, listen, so how does everybody get a hold of you? I don't know what happened there. How does everybody get a hold of you, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, so I've got my LinkedIn.
I'll put it here.
LinkedIn is much better.
All right, so right there, linkedin.com, Martin Fenn, MMC. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so listen, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Martin, I really appreciate you joining us today. Martin Fenn, amazing CIOB. Join his webinars, learn about MMC, learn about modern methods of construction, learn about contracts, learn about cranes, learn about sets. All the things that one needs to understand and learn to get into modern methods of construction, to include contracts. How do we globally take this to the next level will be our next conversation for Martin and I. We're going to start sharing some of our contacts so we can really take this on a global scale, I hope. Martin, it's been awesome having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Absolute honor, and thank you very much for inviting me, Dave. It's been great.
Hey, listen, you're more than welcome anytime. All right, everybody else out there, we will see you at 1 o'clock on Wednesday for a product spotlight, and then be sure to join us with myself and co-host Mark Bare Naked Willie this Friday, BS Friday. And it's not the BS you think I'm talking about. It's Building Science Friday. We will be here, and we will be bringing you the best of the building science world, as we always do. Martin, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the outro.
Thanks,
Bye now.
Dave.